Hello and welcome to the live Streamer Backstage Podcast. I'm Alec Johnson and this is a weekly show where I interview fellow live streamers to understand how they're using live streaming as a tool in their business and to discover the tech, gear and the software that they use to produce great live shows. My guest today is Luis Vega, A.K.A. Mr. Camera Junkie, and as the name may suggest, Luis is a photographer and videographer and also a live streamer, podcast producer, editor and digital media creator. Now, if you spend any time on content creator live streams or in the creator communities, then I'm pretty sure you'll know the Mr. Camera Junkie name because Luis is such an active member in so many of these connected communities and a regular in the chat of so many live streams. He also, of course, streams weekly on his own Mr. Camera Junkie channel about all things cameras, tech, and content creation. Now, in his YouTube bio, Luis says that he started his channel to document his crazy ideas and journey through photography, videography, and YouTube itself. And it's clearly a subject that he's passionate about. What has been really great to see over the past couple of years that I've been in these communities is how this passion, coupled with his extensive knowledge around cameras and videography, has grown into a full-time business. Luis is now producing multiple events, podcasts, and live streams for the likes of ecamm Network, no less, among others, as well as providing consultation and editing services for other names in the content creation space. I think that many content creators out there dream of one day going full-time, with their content creation surpassing and then becoming their primary source of income. I mean, who doesn't want to get paid for what they love doing? So I'm really looking forward to Luis sharing his journey with us, and I'm sure we can all learn a lot from some of the steps he has taken along the way through that transition. So without further ado, let's welcome Luis Vega. Hey Luis, great to have you here.
Wow, what an introduction. Excited to be here, but just taken away. Thank you. And I'm super excited to share anything and everything as far as my journey and to what has gotten me to where I'm at today.
Cool. Well, it's been really great to see from my side, and certainly, when I started doing this, not quite 2 years ago, but you were always someone who was there in almost every stream I seem to fall into. You were there somewhere in the chats, and it's great to have you on here to chat with us today. So perhaps you can start by giving us a bit about your sort of background and how you how you got into this, and obviously your passion for photography. But how did this all come about for you, and how did you get into live streaming?
Well, how I got into live streaming was after I realized the potential in the platform that we call YouTube, right? That the ability to be able to have whatever you want to create and have a platform at your disposal. So there was already a couple of things that I had done prior that had given me a really good understanding of the way things worked, which is why YouTube was so attracting to me. So, for example, one thing that I've done in my past is that I did stand-up comedy at an open mic night. It was kind of one of those.
Cool.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those bucket list items. But for me to get just 5 minutes on stage to do something that I wanted to do, I had to ask 10 of my friends to sign up for me so that they can show up. And there was cost involved with them getting themselves ready, whether it be babysitters and a gigantic production to get 10 of your friends to show up. And that was just so that I can get 5 minutes on stage whenever they decided. Right. But then you have a platform like YouTube that gives you the same ability to create your own stage and put up the content at your heart's desire. So if you want to be a primetime show that stars every Saturday night, then guess what? You have the ability to just show up on the platform and do that for yourself.
Mm-hmm. That's it is a cool place that you can find your audience, or rather, your audience will find you when you start doing these things. I remember my first live stream was to 0, and then slowly over the months, a few people have started watching. In my case, and how have you found that then? How have you found the process of actually finding your audience or your audience finding you? How has that been as an experience for you?
Oh, that's just been an awesome experience. That's actually what took it kind of over the top with YouTube for me. So as I had already been making pre-recorded content and putting it up on the platform, but it was actually a friend of mine, Tom Buck, that actually pointed me out on his 40th 40,000 subscriber live stream. So let me get that
Right.
out correctly. He
Uh-huh.
was celebrating his 40,000 subscriber milestone. And I was, as you mentioned before, just hanging out in chat. And he decided to just like point me out and recognize me for what I had already been doing on the platform. And that blew me away. It really did take me back, and it let me understand that the things that I was trying to achieve on this platform, like I was already on the stage that I was looking to find. I was already there. I might have been, far left, right? Or maybe just part of the background at that moment, but I was already there. And having that little bit of recognition just opened my eyes to a couple of things, to the, to the impact that I had already had on the platform at that moment. And also the love that I had for live streams, because
Mm-hmm.
even though creating pre-recorded content, I wasn't going live myself at that moment, but I was absolutely enthralled with anyone who was live at the moment. So whenever I would see someone's live notification was up, I was all over it, as I normally am, and always
Mm-hmm.
participating in chat. And I don't know if that took me back to my days of, like AOL and chat rooms,
Right.
and being to, like communicate with people in that manner, but having that live interaction both with the content creator and the chat is something that I absolutely loved. So it was when that happened, when Tom mentioned it to me, that I was basically like, the light bulb went on and I was like, I need to be doing this myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I started going live, which led down the rabbit hole of, meeting Doc Rock, and starting when everyone was doing Vlogmas for the first time,
Right.
I decided to do live streams, so to speak. Because
Right.
what
Right.
I did 30 days of consecutive live stream, and
Mm-hmm.
when I started that, I just last Saturday completed 104 consecutive weekly live streams to complete 2 years of live streaming, and the ball rolls
That's
on.
cool. That's cool. I mean, we talk about, creating a business out of, this, but it's not something that comes by accident. You're certainly someone who's put in, all of the work, and that just shows it really, consistent every week, not missing one. It's an impressive feat.
That's something that I'm proud of myself, because it's something
Quite
that
rightly.
I want control of, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of metrics, that we deal with on YouTube that we really don't have control over, but showing up and being present, that was
Yeah.
100% on me. And the fact that I absolutely love it makes it that much easier.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, 104 weeks, and we're going for 105 next week. And, you know, I don't see a end in sight.
No, well, congratulations on that achievement, and yeah, I'm sure it'll be you'll be up to 156 this time next year. So yeah, and how have you found then that sort of the growth of well, I suppose personal growth as well, but just the growth through the of the channel through that process, and how do you feel now after having all of those under your belt, so to speak, compared to when you went live for the first time? What's that sort of process been like for you?
It's been incredible, because the recognition and the things that I've been able to accomplish have exceeded anything that I could have ever imagined. Because when I first started going live, I didn't have 100 subscribers on my channel. And
Mm-hmm.
not that I really think that that matters much when it comes to subscriber count. But what it did for me was that it completed the one thing that I wanted to get out of YouTube, which
Mm-hmm.
was I wanted to get my own channel URL. And for you to do that, you need 100 subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
And I was 75 subscribers with the content that I had created already. And within the first week to say 9 days of me going live on that challenge, I was already over 100 subscribers. I already had my channel URL, and I had already completed the goal for my channel. So whether, to better say, our goals change once we, achieve the goal that we had in place, and we kind of like move the goalpost further back so that we continue to grow. But like I said, everything that I got past that has been a complete just completely amazement, complete astonishment of the things that I never thought could have happened. From being part of international conferences and the leap into a live streaming event that happened last year, in 2021. That was something that just came about all of a sudden, and that was something that I had set up to be a personal goal for this year, 2022. And the ability to be able to fill in a slot and then be part of it just that same year when I first heard of it was something that I was really taken aback, and a milestone that I was able to achieve. That, like I said, when I started this whole thing, it wasn't even a milestone that I knew that I could even get to. And now it's something I've already done and continue to do, because I was also part of Leap into podcasting this year with ecamm network as well. So there's been so many things that I've just been able to accomplish and consider a milestone that now I get to say that that's part of my resume.
Yeah, sure.
The same time is just because I haven't actually put a label or a limit to it, and I'm just able to pick up these skills and these kind of like acknowledgments along the way.
Well, I mean, it's you are such a sort of familiar face in the communities as well. It's like that's it helps when people are, so giving as you are, and they're always, taking part and engaging in all of the discussions and communities as well. You do become someone who is a sort of known figure in these arenas, and so it's only natural that you're a top of the list for a choice for speaking at these kind of things. Yeah, because as I say, because of just your dedication to it and consistency and all of those kind of things. I just want to take a moment to talk about ecamm Live. This is the live production Mac software that we're using to live stream and record this podcast. In my opinion, it is the best live streaming and recording software on the market today. So what exactly does it do? Well, essentially, it allows you to control the content that you're including in your video, be it a live stream or a recorded video. And you do this by building out different scenes that contain the content that you want to show. This content may be a feed from your camera, or indeed multiple cameras, or you may be sharing a screen, which is what I do a lot of in my tutorial style videos that I make for my Take One Tech YouTube channel. You can share the screen from a second computer, or maybe even a gaming console if you are a live streaming gamer. And just as we are doing in this podcast, you can also bring in guests using ecamm Live's built-in interview mode, where guests can join from a browser and you can then incorporate their video and audio into your production. Finally, you can add all kinds of additional graphical and animated overlay elements and even movies to really add a level of branded professionalism that would be hard to achieve in any other way. The real magic happens though when you hit that record or go live button, because then you are able to seamlessly switch back and forth between all of the scenes that you've created. And indeed, this is how all of the videos have been created for my Take One Tech YouTube channel. And the reason it's called Take One Tech, by the way, is because all of the videos are made in one take with no edits. I just hit record, make the video, and as soon as I hit the end recording button, the file is there and ready to be uploaded straight to YouTube. What I love about ecamm is not just the ease of use that it has when compared to other live streaming software, but also the greater flexibility it gives in terms of layouts and designs that you can create for your shows when compared to some of the hardware streaming solutions. And one thing that makes ecamm great specifically for podcasts is the fact that it has the ability to record isolated audio tracks. So once we finish recording this podcast, I'll have a separate audio file for me, my guests, and any other audio tracks that have been a part of the recording. That makes the editing and repurposing of the content for the podcast so much more streamlined. It does have another little trick up its sleeve though, and that is its virtual camera feature. This allows you to take the video output from ecamm live straight into communication apps like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Discord, and so on. This means that rather than just appearing in Zoom meetings with a regular camera feed, you can now show up with all of the amazing production values that ecamm live gives you and deliver that straight into your Zoom meeting. And trust me, when you rock up to a Zoom meeting with ecamm, the other participants will be truly amazed. So whether for live streaming, recorded video content, or to level up your Zoom game, I highly recommend you give ecamm live a go. You can get a free trial by going to takeonetech.io/ecamm. That's ECAMM. takeonetech.io/ecamm. And of course, you can find a link to that in the show notes as well. You will certainly not regret giving it a go. Now let's get back to the show. Where did your sort of actual love for photography and cameras come from? You know, sort of prior to starting the channel. How long have you? Where's that sort of stem from?
Well, that actually stems from childhood because I was the fortunate people to actually be part of like my school's morning announcements. And since the third grade, I was in front of a camera, behind a camera, and doing a variety of different positions, learning that aspect because it was something that was available at my school.
Oh, that's really cool. So it really is a lifelong passion.
Yep. And I kind of fell out of the passion when I finished school because I didn't get into any university. And that the job market for that type of work back when I finished school, 1999, 2000, right? You had to volunteer all of the work. So you would have to come and do it for free so that you can get recognized, which is understandable. But at the same time, you needed the transportation to go back and forth to all of these events, which is what I really didn't have. So with that being said, I didn't have the ability to kind of create my name in that market and quickly fall into, the job force, the workforce, and you put your passions on the back burner. And then the next thing you know, in a blink of an eye, 20 years passed and you haven't really kept up on the things that you were really passionate about.
That actually makes the story all the more sweeter that you actually have come full circle back to a passion from childhood, because that happens all the time. I know there's certain things that I used to love doing that I've just sort of fallen out with these days that I don't keep up or don't give the time to. So to actually come back to something full circle like that's lovely. Lovely to hear that. And with the sort of services that you're offering to people then now, with the the editing, the hosting, and the podcasting services, and obviously the public speaking as well, how is that working out, and how are you sort of managing that from a sort of time perspective and fitting that in with your own stuff, and what's been the evolution of that as you've sort of started to take on more clients and do more things in that respect? What's that process and journey been like for you?
It's been very interesting, and like it's been a personal journey on top of just like a business journey. For example, what I was doing prior to going all in on the content creation side was that I had already established a prior business where I was doing remote, or like I would drive to the customer and do iPhone repairs from my vehicle. So I had a very convenient iPhone repair service business here in South Florida, and I was known as Mr. Fix It, rolling around all the streets here in South Florida. So what I had to do was had to stop being a master to, or like being a slave to two masters. I think that's the way that they're saying.
Sure. Yes. Yeah.
To dedicate my time to what I wanted, or I saw as the long game, and what would be more prosperous for my future. The fact that I'm doing something that I absolutely love, and also have the ability to get paid for it, but had sacrifice was the prior business that I had created that, just like a child, you still have love for. And I all of my clientele base that I built here in South Florida, but I had to stop fixing phones because I could not do both consistently. So at the halfway point of this year, I made a firm decision that I was no longer going to answer any of those phone calls so that I can prioritize on establishing the business that I'm working and building up now within the content creation, editing and podcast production. There's a variety of different revenue sources or avenues compared to the exact work that I had with my iPhone repair business, because the biggest difference in my eyes were that if I wasn't the one doing the phone repairs, I wasn't able to make the money.
Mm-hmm.
But in this sense, now I have the ability to have people create content, and I still am able to edit that no matter where I am in the world. So
Mm-hmm.
if, for example, if I wanted to take a trip to New York to be part of an event, right? I can no longer service the people in South Florida in the time that I was in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Yet content creation space, because I'm working digitally, I am able to do my edits and do the production side no matter where I'm at, just as long as I have a, solid internet connection.
Mm-hmm.
I am able to do more with my time. Now, speaking about time is the other aspect that I had to really learn how to navigate in this content creation space. But the way that I did it was that I just compartmentalized the same way that I would do if I were to be looking for a job for someone else. We traditionally do a 9 to 5, which is a 40-hour work week, meaning out of 4 weeks in a month, you regulate about 160 hours of your life towards work and or employment and making money. So that's the way that I've been able to set my time off and like basically offer them up for different clients for different needs
Mm-hmm.
through blocks of time.
Got
And
you.
basically they're able to reserve an amount of time from me monthly,
Mm-hmm.
and that way they're able to get what they need from me in that same timely manner, because I am able to schedule people as
Mm-hmm.
far as like either days of the week or time cut out in my schedule to dedicate to their production or their edits.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And so, what are the things you're doing? Obviously, I know the about the editing. I also know about the behind the scenes with the podcast production. So, I was on the Flow ecamm's podcast with our content creators pod, the creators pod. So we were on there as guests, and then when we dialed in, we were like, "Oh, you're running the show," and it was great because we felt like we're on TV or something because of the professionalism that you brought to it. I mean, you'll know that when you dialed in to come onto this show, there's just me saying hi, let's get this
Mhm.
going, but there was something about turning up to a show where, you're there to greet us and get us all set up and all that sort of stuff prior. It really adds a level of professionalism to a show if you're hosting guests. It's something to be considered if you're running a guest-based podcast, to have somebody like that is dealing with all the tech for you and that is there to sort of, greet the guests and get them all set up beforehand. It made the whole experience quite something different than I'd personally experienced, having been on quite a few podcasts at this stage now. So it really did
Well,
make a difference.
Well, I would like to think that that has a lot to do with me personally, right? Being the one who greeted you.
Of
But
course it
at the
did. Yeah,
same
yeah.
time, but at the same time, I do love the production aspect, right? And
Hmm.
giving that, you know, like giving that service to someone like yourself or anyone looking to produce a podcast to make it as possible, even if they are interviewing guests. So for
Hmm.
example, I give the ability to just be able to have the conversation and kind of forget about the tech, even though you
Yeah.
still have someone dedicated to make sure that the tech is running properly and that you're getting the highest quality, both video and audio. So
Hmm.
having that aspect and that control, I'm also listening to everything that's going on in real time, and also at the same time being able to fix little things. So for example, like some people tend to like slouch in their chairs, and then other
Yep.
people might be too close or even too far away, and instead of stopping the entire production from behind the scenes, I'm able to fix a lot of those little things that
Yep.
might be distracting and just take them out, without anyone even mentioning it. So I do take pride in all of those little details, so to speak, that make
Mhm.
everything flow so smoothly. And that's part, that is the service that I'm providing. And another added bonus is that through the software that I'm using, ecamm, I have the ability to record everything as well. So both the video and audio that I'm getting in, I'm able to record locally to my computer, which speeds up the editing process in post
Mhm.
production, because instead of having to wait for both the guest and the host to upload files so that then I can download them, I already have them, and it just takes another step away from the guest and the host to make
Mhm.
things even that much easier.
Yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head there with about where you're talking about letting the host just get on with actually, the interview and focusing on that, because when you do have to think about the tech, like even now I'm just sort of checking that things are still working on different platforms and stuff, and it is a constant thing that is there as a potential distraction, and certainly when you're just getting ready to start and that. So it's a really valuable service that you're offering. And that thing as well about I've switched to scenes in ecamm before and then realized, I'm too zoomed in on somebody or need to tweak it, so that then obviously distracts from the flow of the conversation. So it's a great a fantastic service that you're offering. And what else as well? Obviously, there's that and the editing. How about the sort of consultation side of stuff in terms of cameras? Because obviously that's it's in your name. So with
Exactly.
people wanting to set up their studio and camera equipment and stuff like that, what have you been doing in that sense and helping people in that way? Is that something that you're doing consultations on?
Yeah, that's basically, you hit it on the head. Like, people ask for whether it's consultation on the complete setup, on their lighting, on their cameras, and what gear that they should buy for the type of content that they want to create. So the consultation with me could be about gear, but it's not going to be primarily about gear, because
Mhm.
for me to give the best consultation or the best advice from the consultation, I'm going to have to ask the best questions to get the correct information. And
Mhm.
one of the things that I always ask is like, what content are you looking to create? And what is like your day to day kind of like everyday carry look like?
Mhm.
Because to get the best quality that some people want, right? Because they see it maybe on somebody else's stream or somebody else's content. They're like, I want it to look like that. But they might not have the means to have an entire crew or an
Mhm.
entire person dedicated to work that content machine. So
Yes. Yeah.
that's where I pride myself on calling myself basically a solo production specialist, right? I can
Mhm.
help you figure it out for your means and your style, because there's a lot of content that can be created, but people are put off because of because of the tech, and they start thinking like, I don't understand it and things like that. And that's what I guess we kind of don't want, because your message still needs to be heard. And if you're looking to do this as far as a business, then your message definitely needs to be put out there so that you can actually, advertise for your business. So at the end of the day, you have to see what is the best case scenario for each. Well, basically that. Yeah, like what is going to be the best for each case scenario and what is going to be the best for that person, because it depends, like through the tech you can get really lost, and people say that this is the best camera that you should get
Mhm.
because it has the ability to shoot S-Log and all these different formats. But that's when I would ask the question, is that the type of content that you actually create? Because
Mhm.
if you're not going to be doing S-Log editing in your workflow, then that's not the camera that I would recommend for you. So
Mhm.
whether it comes to lighting, cameras, equipment, um, and even like equipment as far as hardware, computers, monitors, all the things that are part of the production, I am able to help to lead you, in the right direction so that you can buy it right the first time and so that you don't have to buy it twice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's a great point that you make about, people see other people talking about certain pieces of gear and thinking that they need the latest and greatest. I think there's probably no guest that's been on here that hasn't said something very similar about, you don't need the latest gear and that, but it's so true. I mean, I'm just in the process of updating my studio. So I've got some new lights coming. I've got some new cameras. I've got one sitting on my Z desk, a ZV-E10 that's going to go into the system. But at the moment, I'm using some like $30 soft boxes with regular light bulbs in them. My camera is an 11-year-old Canon EOS 60D, and it's working, and it's not getting in the way of my message. And in the Creators Pod, my other podcast with my group of creative friends, when I talked about that, I was going to be upgrading this stuff, Dina said, like, is it actually going to improve your content though? And it made me think, the fact is, it isn't going to improve my content because my content is the information that I'm giving. What it will do, though, is there's certain things that I'm changing that are going to be an improvement. But it's more about being able to educate other people on this gear. So if I wasn't doing, courses on this sort of stuff and teaching people, then it's so true that you don't need the latest and greatest. And one of the things that I love about you as well, we'll come onto this a little bit later when we look at the behind the scenes, but it is the way that you are adaptable and you come up with unique solutions, some of the creative ways that you've built things in your studio yourself, just as I do. But so I'm just saying that to reiterate the fact that, I know you're coming to this from a position of what are the things that you need, and what's the sort of place to move forward from where you are now, basically. So I understand that that's your sort of ethos as well.
Yeah, because even right now, I'm not using the latest and greatest as far as tech. My cameras are from 2019, A6100s from Sony, and it's because that's the equipment that I had already.
Yeah.
So, to go right in with what you were saying, which is that I was able to utilize the gear that I already had for my photography and then apply that to my live stream. And it's because of that I have this camera. If not, I probably would have gone a completely different route. But, like, it would have always fallen into the place of like, do the best with what you have already before you start looking into it. That's kind of part of being a camera junkie, right? Like, other people might think it's junk, and I'm going to show you how I can make it look really good.
I also have to mention then your whole brand and t-shirt, your upgrade your skills, because that is the first thing that people should be looking to upgrade, because actually you may find that the stuff you've got as well, you can get a hell of a lot more out of it by becoming more proficient at using it as well. Just one of the many applications of that phrase, I know.
That's actually how it came about, right? But through photography, because I recognized that when people started recognizing my photography, it was because I did exactly that. I upgraded my knowledge base. I upgraded my skill in photography that was able to be represented in the images that I was creating. And I had people overlooking my work and going, "Did you buy a new lens? Did you get a new camera?" And I knew that I hadn't. So that's part of like the origin of the upgrade your skills, because once you get there, then you can make the best out of anything that you have in your hands. And you really don't need to be worried about the latest crazes of the new tech, because you're very happy with what you're creating with what you have.
That's cool. And with the editing thing, just to come back to this sort of side of stuff, how do you approach that from the point of view of, when people give you content? Are you doing this more as editing a specific show, or are you doing the sort of repurposing kind of stuff as well? How do you approach something when somebody gives you something? What's your sort of creative process in that respect of taking a load of footage and then making something out of it? Because this is something that I don't really do. I feel like I'm terrible at editing because I haven't taken the time to upgrade my skills in that respect. Hence the one take thing for my channel. But what's your sort of creative process there when somebody gives you you've got a load of footage? How do you go about that from a creative point of view?
Well, that's a really interesting question because there's different ways to attacking it, like the same problem, there's different ways of going about it. And that has a lot to do with the conversation that I have with the client that's providing the content prior to me actually starting to do anything with it. So, for example, there's some clients that want me to just kind of take care of the raw aspect
Mhm.
because they want to put all the bells and whistles because they feel that that's what makes it their style.
Got you.
Okay, so that's just kind of like bare bones. Then there's people who have like a podcast or a live stream that they want you to repurpose. There's two ways of going about that, so to speak, which would be cleaning up the entire live stream so that it just flows as one piece of content. And then also, after you've completed that, taking various points or like key parts of that conversation and chopping it down to, something for social media, maybe make it vertical or for
Mhm.
various different platforms to kind of like have more content being repurposed out of that same live stream or podcast. Then you have people who are looking for complete editing services, which they totally dislike it and have never done it in their lives, but they see what other people
I'm
they
raising
see
my hand
what
now.
other people
Yeah.
they see what other people have out there, and they're like, I see these videos and this is what I want you to create. Those can be fun, but they're also a little difficult because that has to do with the style of the person. So
Mhm.
as an editor, I can put in my own twist, but if I were to put in a piece of like B-roll or supplemental content, like we call memes, like put in a meme as far as a joke or something like that, that really doesn't fall in place with that client's audience, then that
Mhm.
has a lot to do with the style. Because as an editor, I'll be like, I thought that fit perfectly, but in the contrary, it probably really doesn't because I don't know their audience that well. So
Mhm.
that's where, like it could be a little difficult, but that's where the creative process could actually be a lot of fun. I think Doc Rock was just mentioning it on his last live stream that um, putting constraints on your creativity could actually
Mhm.
lead to like a lot more than what you ever intended because you'll be able to look at things from a different light. So the
Mhm.
same way that I said that there's always a different way to attack and edit, that's kind of like the best way that I can put it, which is try to look at things differently to see how you can upgrade your skills, look at it in a different way so that you can have a different way to edit the same type of content, which will eventually become your own style.
Uh-huh. I think it can also go like the other way as well for somebody who is maybe a little bit concerned, shall we say, to let somebody else in full control of the edit for exactly the reasons you just said. Maybe they're not going to do it the way that I would do it. But then I'm sure there's a lot of people who are really pleasantly surprised when you see like, oh, you can do it that way because somebody with your experience is coming with a different perspective,
Yes.
and actually, they can be over the moon with what you've done because it's something that they would never have thought of.
Well,
I guess
that is what
that
I
works both
call.
ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I would call the ideal client, right? The
Mhm.
ideal client would be the one that hires me to just say, create this, and this is what I'm looking for. And then
Mhm.
when I'm able to produce for them, that they're just like, wow, that's even better than what I thought, which is my goal for every edit, right? But a
Mhm.
lot of times, like I said, there's parameters that we have to kind of constrain or be, reformed into. But the ideal would to be like you have full control. This is what we're looking for, and just with a couple of revision processes, so to speak,
Yes.
to
Yeah.
make sure that we're on the same path. That is literally like that. They're just blown away with what you're able to produce, and you're like, "That's better than what I thought. Let's run with it. Let's go." And that's
Yeah.
just ideal.
And in a sort of long-term editing relationship where it's on an ongoing basis, then this stuff obviously, gets refined and, more in tune with each other in time. In one of my previous lives, I was an architect, so designing homes for people. And some people would come with like a really fixed idea of this is the exact house I want. But some people would have just seen my other work and just say, design me a house. And it was like a complete blank
you.
canvas. And that was just the best feeling. And sometimes, it's a case of I'd do it and then there'd be, maybe change this or change that a little bit. But sometimes the clients were so cool that at the end of having, designed and built the house, I almost wished I could just keep working with them because we had like a good, relationship. And that is, obviously people tend to only design and build one house at a time. But with the editing, it is kind of like an ongoing relationship. So it must be a sort of fulfilling thing to be able to have, sort of build that long-term relationship with people.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's how it actually ends up with all the long-term clients. Eventually, you understand their like pet peeves or their constraints, and you build the style around that. And then they also have the confidence in you to know that you've done it enough consistently that they don't even have to kind of like second guess. They know that you've got it locked in, so that they just ask you, hey, this is what I need. And they kind of all eventually become that I trust you, and we're just gonna like, this is what we need, and just finish it at the end of the day. So yeah, a lot of them end up working out that way as well.
No, that's it's nice. Like I said at the beginning, it's just so nice to see something that's a passion, and then that now you can do this and provide it to a service to people. And when somebody's providing a service and they're passionate about the thing, you know that you're going to get a good service because it's it's something they're passionate about. So now,
it's hard for me to just make it like mail it in. It's really hard. So I always put my best foot forward.
Uh-huh. And we were talking beforehand about studio setups, and I'd always like to leave time towards the end for to talk about studios. And normally it's kind of like the last 15 minutes, but I want to switch over to this a little bit earlier today than usual because I really do love your setup, and I love some of the creative ways you've done things. So perhaps you could talk a little bit through, what you've got set up at the moment. I can bring up a picture. So for those listening on the audio, this is going to be one you'll definitely want to go and check out on video. But perhaps you can just sort of talk through with audio in mind as to what is the actual gear that you've got first and foremost in your setup.
Okay, well, the core of everything is my darling computer, which is the Mac Studio. I have the Max edition, not the Ultra, because I was actually in the market to get the MacBook Pro laptop, but I do the majority of my work from the desktop. And once I realized that I can take those funds and get more performance out of the studio unit, it was kind of a no-brainer for me. So I started with that, even though I had a similar setup with my Mac Mini prior to this. So it could be done with both. Now, I have the Mac Studio, and like I mentioned before, I have my Sony A6100, which I purchased back in 2019. So I've had it for a while now, and it still is a great camera. I have that hung off of the wall, actually on a cheese plate, so that it's actually nice and steady, because the wall is like directly behind my computer and in that workspace. So I don't have space for a tripod. So I'm able to hang my camera, which is also has my Sigma 16 millimeter lens on it, and my I forgot the brand name, but it's kind of like a little teleprompter.
Oh, is it DesView?
A DesView, yes.
It's the same one I've got. That is so yeah,
exactly. It's light enough that it could be held up through the lens without a problem. I didn't want to put the actual monitor that's actually giving me the projected image onto it and have it held by the lens as well. So I actually put an articulating arm that hangs from underneath the camera.
Oh, I see that now.
And that's holding my monitor in that right position, so that it doesn't have all the stress on my lens itself or the camera mount. So that's the way that I have, and that's what's giving me like the direct image. As far as audio goes, I have the Rodecaster Pro 2, which I'm very fortunate to have. Absolutely love this piece of tech because it gives me the ability to connect all of my audio sources and give me like fine-tuned control. But as far as the microphone goes, I am using the SM7B, but that is my latest purchase because that one's actually like kind of like the cherry on top of my entire setup, because I really don't think that I needed to do anything else. To the left, of my main screen that's on, on screen right now, right? That's
Yes, yeah.
kind of hard to say, but my main monitor or my main screen to the left of it, I have a monitor that's just to the left of my Rodecaster Pro, and that's actually connected directly to my Mac Mini. So
Oh,
the
cool.
Mac Mini is running standalone off to the side, which for my live streams allows me to communicate with my moderators through Discord. So
Got
in
you.
case anything were to be happening, whether it's, within the chat or anything that I need to be aware of, like a couple of weeks ago, the voice changer effect went
Oh, do you
on
know, I
my
just saw your
Rodecaster Pro.
short. I just saw the short about that this morning. That was
Uh, I was
hilarious.
on, yeah, and I was like voice changed for like a good 15 minutes because I was on a soliloquy and didn't look off to my side, which I
Yeah.
should have. And my moderators were like trying to, wave at me in to let me know that that's what's happening. But it's part of live streaming, right? So all that information is held here, but also my music is being distributed from the Mac Mini so that I have it on a separate control, and I have my Epidemic Sounds playlist playing in the background while I'm visibly looking at Discord at my moderators. That's what's being held there. And the fact that the Rodecaster Pro has that secondary channel for it, I have that
Yeah.
on its own slider that allows me to, boost or lower the volume of the music instantaneously without having to press any buttons or deal with any other computers while I'm on a live stream. Whether it's completely muted, raise it up or lower it, I can do it all from the slider here physically.
Yeah,
And
that's a
that
really
goes
smart
in.
move. And then just sort of taking off some of the load from you, even though you've got a nice fast Mac Studio, but to reduce some of the load on that for live streaming, to have it on the other one is great asset.
Not so much the load, but actually the thing for me was that it had to do with the repurposing of my live stream content. So because my live stream, I am constantly playing a music bed through Epidemic Sound. If I wanted to repurpose anything that I said, and I would have to edit it with the
Oh, I see.
music
Right.
being like part of the like main file,
Yes.
you would need those cuts within the
Got you.
music because music's beat would be off. So it comes through the secondary. When I record on ecamm, I have that as the secondary microphone. So the secondary microphone is being recorded as an isolated file by itself, allowing my main microphone to give you the mix as the viewer during my live stream. But when I go to check my files on my computer afterwards, they're completely separate so that I'm
Got
able
you.
to repurpose the content without the music being baked in. So that was
Smart
the
move.
main reason for me to have it on the secondary channel. And
Right.
like you said, it also takes load off of the computer so that it can just do everything as far as, like the production, because I do have sometimes up to 5 cameras connected to it. So it just depends on the live stream environment, because I have my main A6100, and then I actually have a secondary shot to the side here to my right, which is also an A6100. Because when I went to go look for my secondary camera, instead of going to buy the latest and greatest, I said this one is actually great, and I wanted to keep the continuity both as far as image and lenses. So I have two A6100s, and they both have Sigma lenses on them so that the colors and the images match always, and it makes it easier for me for post production, so on and so forth. So, and then the last camera that is kind of the shot that you're seeing here is actually from my iPhone XR, which I have hanging floating off of like kind of like a microphone arm, like
Right.
one of these boom arms,
Yep.
because I knew that that microphone arm didn't have enough strength to hold a full-fledged camera, but it did have the weight to hold the phone. And
Right.
I had been using, Epoch Cam from Elgato,
Yep.
but I have to give it up to Apple because their continuity camera is just working so well that now that's actually how I have it connected to give my
Right.
behind the scenes shot during my live streams.
That's a cool setup. And what about the lights? We'll get onto my favorite light, but how about the other lights that you've got your the your sort of main key light and so on? What are those that you're using?
I'm actually using these Wi-Fi Amazon bulbs. Now, these
cool.
are bulbs that I tested out first. So when I was interested in them, I wanted to see how they worked. So I bought a pair, right? Just two, and started seeing how the colors were as far as the LED lights themselves. Once I saw that they were giving pleasant colors, and as far as the color grade, was good, because some of them tend to be like very magenta, and they give you a very like pink hue, and then the
Right.
whites never really end up being white correctly. So I wanted to make sure that they were adequate enough. And what I came to realize that they were, as far as the color, they just had one little bit of issue, which is they needed to be on at full blast. If not, they would tend to flicker in the camera when you try to dim them. So
Got you.
I recognized that, and I said, I can work with that. But because they're also RGB, they're completely color controlled. So what I did, and it's not for everyone, right? But because I am kind of a MacGyver of sorts, what I did was I replaced every single light bulb in my entire room here with the same RGB bulbs, so that they were
Nice.
all color matched as far as temperature goes. And I had complete control to do whatever I wanted with the light scheme. So when I want something bright and airy, I just turn everything on at white. And then if I want to make it, Christmas theme, I can switch the colors in my background. I have pretty much complete control. And because they're controlled through an app, I can just speak to that special lady on the phone that we all have.
Yep.
And once I call her name, I just tell her what setup I want, whether, and I have some that are preset. Like I tell her, hey, set up the live stream lights, which will set up all the color schemes that I have for my live stream. Or even to the fact that I say, set up, my edit lights, which are, the mood that I want while I'm editing, which kind of takes off all the light from my eye so I can see the screens better, right?
Yep.
And kind of just keeps me backlit. So I have everything set up, and the soft boxes that I have from GoDocs here on my right and left, even though the diffusers themselves are from GoDocs, the lights inside of them are still these Amazon bulbs, so that I have
That's
them
cool.
complete control. So I'm getting the correct diffusion, but I'm still using the light source that I purchased from Amazon.
That's a really cool solution. Get the soft boxes, the boxes from those, but then just use these other bulbs. I hadn't heard of these before, but I had a check of them when you sent them through in the link. So they look cool, and to be able to just adjust the whole mood of the room with the touch of a button is genius. But
I can just say like, go ahead.
Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, like, I can just tell my phone lights out and it shuts every light off, or I can say full power and it turns everything to max. So I have a lot of presets. So I basically don't hit a light switch at all anymore. All my lights are controlled through my voice.
That's cool. So cool. It reduces the friction of getting things set up as well, when you can just come in and know you just say a couple of words and then it's all sort of ready to go for you. And one of the things that I've mentioned before, and several times before the stream as well, is the light that you've got in front of you. And I want to get onto this thing of the way that we create solutions for problems that we have in our studios, because I'm a massive sort of MacGyver fan in terms of doing stuff for ourselves, and we've been talking about this before. But perhaps you can tell us a little bit about the light that you created, and then also some of the other things that you've done in your studio with to solve issues that you've had without going out and buying something.
Well, yeah, that's why, like, just to go back to like the consultations, right? For a lot of my clients, they don't have the want to make something for themselves. So I help them as best I can to purchase the things that they need. But me, a lot of times I have particular needs. And one has to do with my setup being kind of like this confined space. And I needed a light to be my main key light here for my face, sitting next to my camera, so that I could be illuminated for my live streams. Well, it started from a lamp that I had there with pieces of paper in front of it to kind of just diffuse the light. But then, as I wanted to up my production value, and that was just something that I wanted to do myself for myself, right? I took it upon myself to actually create the light that I was looking for. And what I was able to do was take foam core and start building out a series of boxes in the shapes of our traditional soft boxes, but on a much smaller scale. And the fact that my entire desk unit is metal, I was able to take something lightweight like foam core and put a simple socket on the back end and build a soft box around that so that I can once again put one of these Amazon bulbs in there that gives me complete control at the correct temperature that I want and have that magnetized to the top part of my desk. So on top of it being the perfect size for my for my setup so that it allows it to be there and not be in the way, I also have the ability to easily take it down and move it off to the side if I wanted to dedicate my entire setup for a more editing based purposes, where I would basically take down both the light and the camera so that I can bring my monitors closer to me.
Oh, cool. I didn't realize it was magnetized. It just got cooler. That's
Yeah,
a really cool touch, that is. I like the way that you've got stuff. I mean, your desk, you've got you got all the gear that you need on it, but it's still got this sort of minimal feel. And I think part of that is the reason, the way that you've got the monitor and the lights and the camera all sort of hanging down. It makes the actual desktop feel a lot sort of clearer. You can move stuff around on it. I like the whole aesthetic of it.
Well, thank you. I try, but I have to be honest with you. Just to the right of it is kind of like where the mess lives, right? Like,
I think you termed coined the term cone of cleanliness, and
exactly the cone of cleanliness. So that,
I love that.
For those of you who might have not heard this before, from the point of the sensor where your camera's at and anything that it can see in front of it, it basically creates a cone of vision. Anything that is behind it or outside of that cone is invisible to the viewer and to everyone's eye. It's what we call the fourth wall when we do film and television production. So you would always walk into somebody's house on a sitcom and you would see three walls because you are the fourth wall. So anything behind that, including messes, will not be seen by anyone. So the cone of cleanliness.
Yeah, the first time I heard that, I was just like, you immediately know what it means. if you've been
so good though.
You're live streaming, yeah, it's perfect.
And like everything on the desk, and you just scoot it
off to the side. Yeah, I've got a few things just tucked away on this side of my desk at the moment. And so, out of all of the things you've got, I know it's hard to sort of pick a favorite, but what would you say would be something that is your sort of favorite bit of gear that you've got at the moment?
I would have to say my RCP2. Like the way that it's been able to bring everything together is just mind-boggling. So to give you a quick run about, on top of it connecting both my Mac Studio and my Mac Mini, I also have my PC, my Windows PC that's connected underneath, coming into another channel as well. So for the few times that I want to, say, go live or maybe go on Twitch, I'm still able to take the signal, it's kind of a complex setup, but I actually Twitch my Windows PC gaming, right?
Oh, right.
Through my Mac computer, through ecamm. Because what I do is that I actually send the video card feed from my gaming PC to one of my inlets, like one of my inputs as a camera to ecamm. And then the other one go directly to my LCD so that there's zero lag, so that all of the frame rates that I'm trying to get maxed out on my monitor, I'm able to gain that way. And then I'm still able to leech off a slightly less, process heavy signal to ecamm, and then with the power of ecamm put myself in the shot as the gameplay is going and send that off to Twitch through ecamm, and just offloading the process, you're able to use an older gaming PC to its max capacity because you're not asking it to do the live stream. You're just asking it to run the game, which is what it's designed for. So instead of having a dual monitor setup, you send one to your gameplay and the other one to ecamm, and you're off and running.
That's cool, and I love the idea of having a Mac dedicated to running ecamm to stream something from a PC. That makes me smile. But I honestly,
I still need to make that video.
I didn't realize you did stuff on Twitch. Actually, I never knew that. So how's? I mean, that's probably another whole conversation we could go into. But how's that going?
That's actually not going. That's why it would be a whole different conversation because in all sincerity, I don't have the time. Right? Like I try to dedicate time as far as like to game just to kind of make it easier on myself. But there's two issues with it. Like the reason why I made the Twitch account was so that I kind of didn't have to feel guilty about playing a video game when I think I could be doing something else. Right. So I feel like I'm still doing something else by doing it on Twitch. But then at the same time, I've had so much trouble trying to find the time to even game for myself that to set up anything for Twitch has been even secondary to thought. So I had a series that I was starting on Twitch, which was, I'll let you know, it's still my idea. I might bring it to YouTube instead because I'm on this platform a lot more, but I digress. It was Final Fantasy VII, and I called it the Final Fantasy VII because they remade that game. And because before I actually play the remake and not be able to go back to the original one that I love so much, I wanted to play the original one last time with a walkthrough and then let it be the final time that I played the game. So that was my idea to actually give myself some downtime, but I really didn't execute it too well.
Right. Well, we'll look out for that one in the future.
Hey, let's see.
One final thing as well. We're getting close to the top of the hour, and I want to be conscious of your time. But I always ask for a book recommendation, and I was really pleased to see the one that you had put down because it's one that's been quite influential with me just of late. Perhaps you can tell us about the one thing and what you've got from it and how it's influenced you.
Oh, that was a really good book. We basically started reading it because of the same reason or the same recommendation from Doc, and that because of time constraints has been the last book that I've been able to actually I listened to it on Audible, right? So it was the last book that I was able to put on there. And when I say that I listened to it, it just doesn't mean that I did it one time. It means that I listened to it basically at least 3 times and let it play in the background so that it sinks in kind of like a methodical aspect and have a better understanding of the message that's being, portrayed through the book. What I was able to take away from it, like after the 3rd time that I heard it, was that it affirmed a lot of the things that I had already been doing without knowing that I was doing them, right? Which was kind of making myself or dedicating myself to one certain thing. So to give you a little bit of a backstory, back in December 2020, January 2021, the application Clubhouse was off and popping, right?
Yep.
And there was a lot of things that was happening in that space. And for the time that I was partaking there and participating, I was also being recognized on that platform. And a lot of people were telling me like to continue on. But that platform, not that I'm taking anything away from it because I really do like it, it wasn't where my passion lied, right? Like my understanding both for photography and videography and my passion was also based around this passion of YouTube as well and having this platform to do it. So with that, I knew that even at that time, even things were progressing well, that wasn't where it lied. So I had to put kind of like my money where my mouth is, and I had to stop spending the time on Clubhouse and reinvest that into YouTube, because we try to spread ourselves thin in so many different places. But like the book references, you have to focus on that one thing. Now, the one thing that I decided to focus on, which was YouTube, has now spawned a variety of different things all on its own. But that would have never happened if I hadn't already done what kind of the book said, which was focus on that one thing. So now what the book is reteaching me is that out of these projects that are spawning, I still have to focus on just one thing, and complete them, so that then I can kind of like check that off and move on towards the next, because it's a lot better to have something completed, even if it's a learning experience in the first place, than to kind of like do 10 projects at only 10%. Because then you're really not accomplishing anything. You're starting a lot of things, but you're not completing anything. And the sense of accomplishment is so good. I wish I can give that to everyone, right? That feeling that you get when you have a completed job well done, and that's what will lead to future projects and future endeavors.
Well, that is a great place to a great message to leave people with. But I also want to leave them obviously with how they can find you. So you'll find links to everywhere, obviously, in the description and the show notes for those listening and watching. But what is the best way for people to sort of find you and to get in touch with you if they want to talk more about editing, consultations, or anything like that? What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Well, the best way to find me is on YouTube under Mr. Camera Junkie, but I'm also Mr. Camera Junkie on all of the platforms, like Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. So through TikTok, or not TikTok, through Twitter and Instagram, you can send me messages. But I am trying my best now to work in my Discord, because that's where I'm going to be centralizing all of my conversations. So even though you reach out to me, I'm going to give you the way to reach me through my Discord. But that, like I said, is where I'll be sending out the information. My Discord is something that I'm working on, but it's such an amazing platform as well to actually centralize all of it. So like the book says, we have to focus on one thing. So I have to kind of centralize where people can reach me. And right now it is YouTube, but that will also directly direct you to my Discord.
Got you. Smart move. I'm with you on that. I'm focused on the Discord as well. It just became such a better place for sort of general conversations. But you mentioned there about, you're Mr. Camera Junkie on all of the platforms. I always ask people for their handles, to put into the show notes and the description and so on. And invariably, people have got slight variations. I mean, I've got Take One Tech on most of them, but then someone had it on Twitter and somewhere on Instagram, so it's Take One Tech _. It's unusual and very refreshing to see someone with. You just search for Mr. Camera Junkie, you'll find him wherever you look. It's great.
I actually love that, but that's also why I chose that name, because of the simple fact that I did a little research, being business oriented, say, that when I went and I decided on that being my name, I made sure that it was available on all the platforms and then literally just gobbled them up. So another, word of advice, if you do have a handle and you're working on a brand like so, and you're on all these different platforms, if a new platform comes up, doesn't mean that you need to jump on it, but you do need to get in there just to kind of reserve your parking spot and make sure that nobody else gets your name. And once you have that, then you worry about it. If the platform then, succeeds or it's something that you like to work with, then you continue to move on forward from there. But the first thing you need to do is just kind of like grab the name. So
great. Another great final bit of advice there. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure to speak to you. I could chat about the MacGyver solutions all day long. It could literally be another whole show. So maybe I'll have to have a rerun and just talk about only that, because it's right up my street, that sort of stuff.
Anytime. It was a pleasure.
Cool stuff. Well, as I say, if you are watching on the replay or listening to the audio, then you can find links to everywhere that you can find Mr. Camera Junkie, Luis Vega, on all of the platforms, and definitely check him out for some of the awesome services that he offers. Certainly been on the receiving end of some of these with being on podcasts that he's produced. I can certainly recommend everything that he's doing. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for listening. And if you are listening to the audio, then definitely go ahead and check out the video of this to just see some of the behind the scenes in Luis' studio. And I will be back at the same time next week with another great guest and another great conversation. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.